Another high-profile area prone to flooding is North Beach. You might recall a canal project has been proposed to help alleviate the drainage issues there in that area. Back in June, the city approved to hire a firm to conduct a feasibility study and to design that canal. And that study is expected to be completed by the end of the year. But that project itself is tied to an overall vision set out by developer Jeff Blackard of Blackard Global, who, along with developer Lynn Frazier, wants to invest millions into that area. Now, Blackard originally came up with the idea for a canal system as the centerpiece for further development on North Beach. It's an issue that members of the Corpus Christi Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Board number 4 couldn't avoid during their meeting today.
These things are connected. We have a huge problem with drainage there. How would anyone want to spend $40 million on a hotel until the drainage is fixed and until you can see on paper exactly how that drainage is going to work for not only his hotel, but the rest of the neighborhood, the rest of the attractions?
Robertson Meyer talking about a proposed luxury hotel and apartment building to be built on North Beach. The developer originally missed his deadline to start construction, and today the board approved an extension for the project to begin work. Our Bill Churchwell will have more on this part of the story tonight on 3 News at 10.